Oh, Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place to work and play. Oh, Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place I want to stay. Its far north gate and southern trails came Walker, Boone, and Kenton too. Kentucky, she is calling, a place of history. Oh, Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place to work and play. Oh, Kentucky, Kentucky County, a place I want to stay. I'm John Stevenson. June Guyman and I are glad to be back off our trip across Kentucky. We traveled some 42,000 miles gathering the history of Kentucky county by county and its tourism attractions. We hope you will appreciate the films of the history of Kentucky by your congressional districts as much as we appreciated the opportunity of traveling through Kentucky some 42,000 miles. Thank you. Now enjoy the history of Kentucky. At this time, let me introduce to you, to give you an overview of Kentucky history, Dr. Thomas Clark.
Dr. Clark, we want to thank you for being with us.
I'm happy to be with you.
What can you tell us? We have been to every county in Kentucky. We've collected the information about the history of each county. We've come to you, Mr. History, to help us close our documentation on Kentucky by telling us a little bit how Kentucky itself got formed.
Well, Kentucky had a bit of a nebulous beginning. This was a wide open, unexplored wilderness territory on this side of the mountains. You begin to see an opening of the door as early as the middle decades of the 18th century. By 1760, Kentucky was gradually coming into focus, and by 1770, it was pretty well explored by the long hunters that came in, and then of course that famous party, they were long hunters too, of Daniel Boone and John Finley, who came into this state. Now, contrary, I think, to popular belief, this was not a region unmarked by no trails or no landmarks. There were buffalo traces, Indian traces across the state. As you know, no major Indian tribe occupied this state. This was a borderland between the northern Indians, the Shawnees with all their associated tribes, and the southern Chickasaw, a group to the south. And there was a great deal of rivalry between them to claim this hunting ground. Now, Kentucky, you know, geographically is of a highly varied nature, highly sectionalized nature. This central cane land here, or what you know as the Bluegrass Plateau, was a very famous grazing ground. There were salt licks scattered around all over the state where animals congregated, and the skin trade, the Indian trade, was a fairly rich one that originated here. In the early records, you have stories of the long hunters pursuing both the fur trade and the skin trade, but the major emphasis was upon the skin trade itself. Then, of course, in the middle of the 18th century, the rivalry between the French and the British, and you began to having those land speculators or surveyors like Thomas Walker, Christopher Gist coming into the region, making those preliminary so-called surveys in quotation marks. From 1760 on, the British were in control of this territory. The British undertook to check population expansion in this direction in the proclamation of 1763, which they were unsuccessful in doing. After 1770, you had a population movement into this region with the establishment in 1774 and 75 of Harrodsburg, or Harrodstown, and Boonesboro, Logan's Fort, and then Bryan Station, Lexington Fort. We're standing right now almost on the ground where the Lexington Fort was located. From that time on, there was a great population movement into this region that you know as Kentucky, concentrated largely in this central bluegrass area. But population in time was to expand into other areas of the state.
What were the first counties in Kentucky?
Well, Kentucky County was the first one in 1776. that was simply a blanket. Well, I believe back of that there was Fincastle County, but Kentucky County was simply a blanket spread of Virginia authority into this western country. Then in 1780 they were created the first three counties, Fayette, Lincoln, and Jefferson counties. Fayette County covered all the area north of the Kentucky River. Lincoln County, the area east of Benson's Creek, and Jefferson County south of the and west and south of Benson's Creek. Benson Creek's mouth is just opposite, about where that office plaza is in Frankfort at the present time.
During the interview, we're standing on West Main Street, which is right across from the old Fayette County Courthouse. What is the significance of this area, Dr. Clark?
Well, we're standing in a very historic spot here. Right here to my right, where this Radisson Hotel is located, is the site of the old Fort Lexington. It was built here on this town creek with trim cane all around it. They cleared the cane all around it, build a fort, and give them visibility, not to be surprised by a sneak Indian attack. Right to my right, on the corner of Main and Mill Street, is where the office of the True American stood. That was an anti-slavery paper published by Cassius M. Clay here in the very heart of Kentucky slavery. Which that office was raided illegally so, in violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution. It was packed up. Later on, the courts granted Cassius M. Clay restitution, and he collected damages for it. To my back is Cheapside. Cheapside has a long and romantic history. Here within 50 feet of where we are standing was the scene of the slave auctions, where slaves were sold out of this bluegrass region to the expanding cotton belt in the south. It's also the scene of the great court day markets in which the livestock trade was carried on. This place used to be crowded with horses, cows, sheep, every kind of all dogs, everything that people had to trade come in on court day and gather around this spot. Two, it was a great political stumping ground for politicians. I could not tell you the speakers who have lifted their voice in seeking office in this square to our back. The building immediately behind us is the 5th courthouse to stand on this spot. The first one was constructed in 1788. They were either burned or torn down because they were antiquated. The 4th courthouse contained the wonderful piece of Kentucky artistry, Woman Triumphant, by the famous artist, just a moment, I'll think of it, Joel Tanner Hart. The courthouse burned down and destroyed that wonderful piece of statuary. I had an forearm of that graceful figure, which I gave to the University of Kentucky. So far as I know, that's the only existing relic of that. Here were conducted trials, lawyers, a string of Kentucky famous lawyers, John Breckinridge, Caleb Wallace, George Nicholas, on down Henry Clay, on down through lawyers of the most famous of the Kentucky bars practiced in this courthouse across the street. That is one of its predecessors. Here it was, right after World War II, that the Army was called out, not the militia. The regular Army was called out to quell a lynch mob in the famous Lovett trial, in which this square was seething with people with ropes and tar, threatening to lynch that Negro boy. The Army veterans brought from the battlefield of France stood off the mob, and the trial proceeded in an orderly way. It is also a square statuary of John Hunt Morgan's equestrian statue is over to our left. John Breckinridge's statue is here to our on Cheapside. This was the center of the business area of Lexington not only Lexington, but it was a kind of a commercial nerve center for all of eastern Kentucky and all of central Kentucky. Louisville, after 1820, became the major commercial city of the state.
Choosing a selection of the capital of the state, how was that done?
That's a pretty complicated issue. Of course, you would have thought they would have chosen one of the major towns in the state, like Lexington or Louisville, or Danville, for instance, or Harrodsburg, but they didn't. They went to Frankfort for various reasons, and I'm not sure that I'm entirely right about all of them, but one of the reasons, it was located near the center of Kentucky population at the time. It also was located on the river, easy access by water. The people of Frankfort supplied some materials and support for the building of a capital, and like all things, everlastingly, including the observation of the 10 Commandments in Kentucky, there's some kind of political implication involved.
Okay. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, besides the immense amounts of knowledge that you possess? How did you get interested in history?
I came to Kentucky in 1928 without knowing a single soul in this state. I got off the train down here on September the 14th, 1928, with 25,000 Kentucky Republicans milling around. I had never seen a Republican who wasn't a postmaster until I rode in the seat from Ashland down here with Charlie Curtis, who was running for vice president on the Hoover ticket. I came here as a student at the University of Kentucky, I was a graduate of the University of Mississippi, and I started work on my master's thesis in the field of Kentucky history, writing on the subject of trade in slaves, livestock, and hemp between this area and the lower South. And I became very much interested in the history of the state from that. And there's scarcely a day gone by in the last 60 years that somewhere or other I haven't been involved in doing something about the history of the state.
We also understand that you've written 20-plus books. Can you tell us what some of the books are about?
Well, I've published a history of Kentucky, the Exploring Kentucky, which was used a long time in the schools. I published the Kentucky in the Rivers of America series, the Rampaging Frontier, Frontier America, the Emerging South, Pills, Petticoats, and Plows, Southern Country Editor, and I've just published The Greening of the South, which has to do with reforestation and conservation of the southern land.
We were talking earlier about the changes that have been made. And when we've interviewed other people, we've asked them what changes they've seen take place. Can you tell us a little bit about the changes you've observed since you've been in Kentucky?
In the state or in the county?
In the state.
Oh, yes. Phenomenal changes. Despite all of the discussion of the educational system and the low standing in many categories of educational effort, I've seen phenomenal changes in educational endeavor. I think I've seen, although I'm no longer in the classroom, I think a much better prepared student is coming to college and universities now than in the old days. I've seen the family farm virtually on the way to disappearance. Who would have thought in 1928 that the great tobacco industry in this state would be threatened as it has been? You would be very remiss not to observe that Kentucky has made phenomenal progress in breaking the barrier of isolation, in building its highway system, and going into every part of the state. In the Clements administration, that legislation from building farm to market roads, building the interstate highway system, and then of course supplemented by the toll road system in the state, and made marked changes in Kentucky. I've also seen Kentucky fail to meet its challenges, fail to come up with what it's possible for it to do. Kentucky is still a provincial agrarian state trying desperately to just kind of ease into the 21st century very poorly prepared to do so.
What do you think about what John's doing?
I think it's very interesting indeed. To go into all 120 counties in this state is a monumental undertaking. And he's gathered up a contemporary vignette look at the state that 50 years from now, people will turn back to these tapes and see that old historian in Lexington and all these people around the courthouses in 119 other counties and say, good God, is that where we were at that time? No, I think it's creating a very nice, interesting, and useful historical document.
I just wanted to come over here for a second to heap a little praise. It's not necessary, but I'm going to do it for this gentleman, Dr. Thomas Clark, because not only did he teach there at the University of Kentucky when I went there to UK, and I had Dr. Charles Talbert for Kentucky history, but I used your book when I taught American history in high school and Kentucky history in high school. And it was a great deal of honor that I did so. You know, I look back over my history myself, and I had people like Mrs. Hinsdale for a history teacher in the 8th grade, and you remember those people that make a mark on your life. And Dr. Clark, you've made a mark on many people's lives here in Kentucky and across the United States and world, and we're very proud of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You spoke of a very fine historian in Charlie Talbot. Charlie was very precise and exacting in his book on Benjamin Logan is an excellent book. He also had a very fine volume on the history of the later years of the University of Kentucky. He was an excellent teacher, as the people in northern Kentucky will tell you.
Absolutely. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, sir. It's nice being here with you, and good luck, John.
Thank you so much.
And good luck,
Thank you.
lady manager.
I'm John Stevenson. June Guyman and I, along with Kentucky's historians, are proud to give you the history of the 4th Congressional District. Burlington, the county seat of Boone County. Boone County population, 51,247. Area square miles, 246. Ranking 87th. Boone County is located in the 4th Congressional District.
To my left, we have the Judge Executive, Bruce Ferguson. Judge, what can you tell us about the formation of Boone County?
Well, Boone County came out of Campbell County in 1796 when it was established. So we were established as a county before Kenton was. Kenton didn't come later until in the 1800s, in fact, about 1842, somewhere in that period. So Boone County is one of the older counties of the state, and it has traditionally been an agricultural county and a rural county until the last 20 years. The interstate system, the development of the greater Cincinnati airport here in the county, and its proximity to Cincinnati changed all that. So we're very much a thriving suburban county with a great deal of new industrial development.
Okay. Can you tell us why the county is named Boone?
Well, of course, it was named after the illustrious pioneer Daniel Boone, although there's no written record of his ever having been present in Boone County. But, you know, that's not unusual. Washington County was named after Washington, but he wasn't there either. But Boone County might have been visited by Boone because of Big Bone Lick here in Boone County. And, of course, we were the first spot recorded on a map being visited by a white man, and that was Frenchman de Longueuil in 1739 when he came to Big Bone Lick under the service of King Louis of France. So we are very historic in that sense. Also, it was from Big Bone Lick that the first white woman in Kentucky, Mary Ingalls, escaped from the Indians. So we do have the fact that the first white woman in Kentucky traveled all the way through Boone County as she escaped and made her way back to Virginia.
Okay. What can you tell us about the courthouse, the one that is in use, as well as this one right here?
Well, the old courthouse there was built in 1892, 100 years after Kentucky became a state. And the new building, which we call the County Administration Building, was erected in 1981, just as I had completed one term of office, and and took 4 years away from public service. It was built at a cost of over $6 million and now serves all the county's needs. The old building is used strictly for circuit court and Commonwealth attorneys' activities, and some of the space is used by Community Action Commission. But the new county building has a jail that will accommodate over 155 persons in the jail, the police department, juvenile court, parks department, planning and zoning, circuit court, clerk's offices, county clerk, property valuation administrator, county police, and the sheriff's office, as well as a few other state offices.
Okay. Something we're trying to do with our visits through each county is to establish what the county has to offer in terms of tourism to promote it.
Well, we do have Big Boone Park, which is not an overnight park as far as a lodge or that type of accommodation. We do have a good camping area there for recreational vehicles and such as that. But Boone County attracts considerable people, of course, because of the airport's location here, and that has been recently established as the third hub of the Delta system. And we will be having international flights, direct flights to London, England, this summer, and also flights with one changeover at Seattle to Japan. So we're truly becoming an international airport, and that does bring in a lot of people. But as far as the only primary tourist attraction, I guess, would be Big Boone Park, which has been established as the world's largest depository of Pleistocene animal bones. So we do have that going for us, but an awful lot of people travel through Boone County because of the interstate system, I-75, I-71, and 275.
Talking earlier about some of the industries, that was information we were also trying to obtain what the major industries were and what the employment situation was for the population in the county.
Well, Boone County has been in much better position than the rest of the state relative to unemployment. Our unemployment level has not exceeded 7%, and it hovers between 5 and 7%. We have some large industries, of course, in the county, such as Square D, which is a primary employer. The airport itself is one of the largest employers in the county. We have major manufacturing companies. Lytton has an awfully very attractive new plant in Hebron out on 275. But major international and national companies are locating here quite frequently now. So we enjoy a high level of employment and a high level of income. Boone County is the fourth highest income per capita in the state of Kentucky. So we're enjoying considerable prosperity.
That's good. Question I have for you with the county itself. Number one, what is the population?
Well, it grows so fast. Let's see, it's more than it was today than it was tomorrow, and certainly more than it was last year. When I first took public office, we had a population of about 21,000 people. That was in 1963. Today the population is right at 55,000 people and moving upward. By 1990, we're rather confident that we will be at 60,000 people. So if the trend continues, by the 21st century, we'll be larger than Campbell County.
Do you find yourself or find the county faced with any particular problems that you would like to see corrected, or would you like to see improvements made?
Well, it's always problems with growth. The main problems are providing the infrastructure such as water, sewage, and transportation, and controlling traffic. Those are, I guess, good problems because they're problems related to the growth of the county. Police protection is a constantly increasing problem. The mall attracts so much commerce to the community. Presently, we're doing Boone County sends to Frankfort more sales tax monies than does either Kenton or Campbell County. So a lot of commercial activity causes there to be crime and problems. But those are problems that we are eager to approach and to solve if we can, and I believe we're doing a good job of it.
Catlettsburg, the county seat of Boyd County. Boyd County population, 53,661. Area square miles, 161. Rank 115. Boyd County is located in the 7th Congressional District.
We're standing across the street from the Boyd County Courthouse, which is located in Catlettsburg, Kentucky. With me we have 3 local residents. Would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Carolyn Hart Clay. I live in Catlettsburg.
Okay.
And I'm Bill Scott, a Boyd County Commissioner.
Okay.
And I'm Paul Purvis, Boyd County Judge Executive.
All right, thank you. Carolyn, what can you tell us about the formation of the county?
Well, the county was organized in 1860, and it was named for Lynn Boyd, who was born in Tennessee and came to Kentucky as a young man and became interested in politics. He served in the Kentucky legislature for 2 terms and then went on to Washington for 18 years in the House of Representatives. He became Speaker of the House and later was named Lieutenant Governor, but he died before he was inaugurated. Catlettsburg was formed from Greenup, Lawrence, and Carter counties and was in 1860. Catlettsburg was settled in 1849 by Horatio Catlett. The Catletts came to Catlettsburg in the early 1800s and were very prominent in the formation and development of the city of Catlettsburg. Horatio Catlett laid out plots for Catlettsburg, and the town was named for him. One important, we think that Catlettsburg was very important in the early history of this area. Being at the confluence of the Big Sandys and the Ohio rivers, it was the center for the timber trade, which is really the foundation of its financial growth. We have many historical spots in Catlettsburg. Some of the old houses that were here during the period of Horatio Catlett. We have one, Beechmore Place, which they always claimed that one of the Catletts was buried under the back porch in that Beechmore Place.
Okay.
We point with pride to a marker in the courthouse lawn of Judge William M. Elliott. He was a judge of the Court of Appeals and was assassinated on the steps of the Capitol. He was also important in the Confederacy, and that the monument in the courthouse lawn was erected by his widow in memory of his great service to the state of Kentucky. We have another monument in town which we point with pride, the monument of DeSoto in the lower end of town. In 1544, DeSoto is supposed to have come through this area, and I asked a member, and it was erected by the Colonial Dames of America, and I asked one of the ladies why they chose this particular spot. She said, well, it is believed that this is where he first saw Kentucky.
What can you tell us about the courthouse, the age of it, a ballpark figure?
Well, I hate to say that we have made some research, and so far we found it's believed that the courthouse was established in we'd say in the area of 1875, and Mr. Scott and I found a plaque on the courthouse this morning saying that they built the addition in 1850, but we still have another addition that's just more recently built. But Catlettsburg is a center. Catlettsburg is a county seat of Boyd County. And all the business of the county is transacted here in our city of Catlettsburg. And I want to say that the Catlettsburg is a town that has many fine churches, and our greatest assets are our people.
Okay, thank you. Bill, a question I wanted to ask you. We go into each county, and at one point we interview a certain official in the courthouse, and we've never had a chance to ask someone who's in a commissioner capacity what their role is. Could you tell us a little bit about what a commissioner does?
Okay, June, I'll try to summarize it for you. A lot of people call it a part-time job. I personally feel like it's just about a full-time job, working to support the family through other means. Like I work at Armco Steel Corporation, but you still have a 24-hour job and responsible to the people that much. We meet twice a month here in Boyd County, and that's regular meetings, and we sort of set policy for Judge Purvis here and the people that work for the county, to operate on. They run the day-to-day operation of the county. But it is a very important job. We feel like operating the county budget and keeping up with the road department, the jail and the courthouse and repair and all the people that work for our organization.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a question we have is, what are the major industries of Boyd County?
Did you say where or what?
No, what are the major industries of Boyd County?
Of course, you know, Boyd County has been very, very fortunate that we've had the plant and the executive offices of Ashland Oil Refining Company located here in our county, as well as Armco Steel Corporation, which started many, many years ago just as a small steel mill and now has developed into one of the top several in the nation. And Boyd County has been well blessed by having those two companies here, and I think basically that's where we have built, you know, the biggest part of our economy. And you know, they refer to us as the gateway to Kentucky highlands where coal meets iron, and I think that's a very fine little slogan, you know, that we have, and it just says, you know, basically a whole lot about Boyd County.
And if someone was coming through Boyd County, what would they need to see?
Well, there's so many little pamphlets out, you know, describing Boyd County, and you'd be surprised, really, how many nice things that there is here. You know, we got museums, you know, we got the hills, we got the mountains, we got the river, we got the industry, we got parks. You know, there's lots of things here. Hunting and fishing, you know, is big things for us. And just recently, Boyd County joined with several other counties in the state, and we established that 6% tourism tax on hotel and motel reservations. And as a result of that, that's creating some funds for our tourism commission down here, and we have a very active one.
June, we're very proud people in Boyd County. We're very small in area, the county is. We're very close-knit throughout the county, and we would like a better quality of life for all of our people. You know, I guess we have a lot, and we're very thankful for that, but we would like to have more work for our people and lower unemployment rate, just a better quality of life all the way around.
But Ashland is a very, very fine city, a very prosperous city. It's a second-class city. We want to keep it that way. When they came down the Ohio River and put in their rafts and boats or whatever they were traveling in, down around 15th or 16th Street there to Riverbank. And the first establishment here, Ashland, was called Pogue's Landing. And that was because of the families that pulled in there at that particular time. And there's still some of that relatives of the Pogue family is still right here in Ashland and in Boyd County.
Jackson, county seat of Breathitt County. Brooksville, the county seat of Bracken County. Bracken County population, 7,583. Area square miles, 203. Rank 100th. Bracken County is located in the 6th Congressional District.
Behind us we have the Bracken County Courthouse. County seat is Brooksville, Kentucky. To my right we have Mr. Tony Johnson, who is a resident here in town, also a history teacher. Correct? Okay, Tony, what can you tell us about the formation of Bracken County?
Bracken County was formed in 1787 and was developed out of parts of Campbell County and Mason County. And it was named after William Bracken, who arrived in the area in 1773. And he was a well-known Indian fighter and hunter of the area. And it's also named after a very popular fern that grows along the creek banks in this area.
Okay. The county seat, or the courthouse itself, this obviously isn't the original courthouse, but what can you tell us about this one and perhaps other ones?
The first courthouse was in Augusta, Kentucky, and it developed out of a land grant to Augusta by Captain Philip Buckner, and it existed in Augusta until 1839. 1839 was a period of time where it moved a couple times and ended up in a place called Woodward's Crossroad, which is now present-day Brooksville. And this is the second courthouse in Brooksville. The first courthouse, the original one, was condemned in 1913, and the new one was dedicated in 1915.
Could you share with us what you shared with me earlier about some things that took place here in the 1800s?
Well, Bracken County has a very little known history about wine production. In 1870, Bracken County was the leading county in the nation in wine production, and we produced over 30,000 gallons of wine annually, which accounted for over half of the production of wine in the entire United States. And also in 1867, white burley was brought into Bracken County, raised and marketed for the first time near Augusta, Kentucky. And this is the forerunner of the modern-day burley tobacco, which is very important to our state.
Do you know why wine production stopped?
Well, it's only speculation, but I believe a little bit better wine-producing areas developed, plus the fact that the German influence started to dwindle during that period of time.
Okay. What is the major industries in Bracken County?
Definitely farming, and you have F.A. Niter Company and Clopay in Augusta, but farming overall is the major industry.
Okay. Do you know what the population is of the county?
Roughly 7,000.
7,000. Okay. Something we're trying to do is promote tourism, and some counties have a lot to offer, some counties don't, and they want something in their area. What's the situation with Bracken?
Well, presently, Augusta, Kentucky has did a lot as far as restoring the row houses and many of the original homes in Augusta. And they do offer tours and a Heritage Day celebration in which people can come and tour the various houses in the area.
Tony, where do you teach?
I teach at Taylor. It's elementary school, junior high here in the county.
Okay. Tony, what do you think about Mr. Stevenson's project of taping all the courthouses for school education purposes?
I think it's a great idea. I know as a history teacher, there's been many times I would like to know a lot of the more important details about the counties and have a chance for the children of Kentucky to see the various county seats and courthouses. And I'm sure that there's not a history teacher in the state that will not find this beneficial.
Yes, I'm Tom Stevenson, a county extension agent for 4-H. Been here about 20 years.
Okay, what does an extension agent do?
As a 4-H extension agent, I work with the youth programs. We have about 400 active 4-Hers in clubs that meet regularly monthly, and 4-H has the philosophy of learning by doing and hands-on kinds of learning experience. And Bracken County is a rural county, predominantly agriculture, and so our 4-H youth program deals with subject matter relating to agriculture. We have an outstanding livestock program here. We're conditioning and grooming and fitting 54 steers and about 30 lambs and a dozen hogs or so for the Germantown Fair that comes up the first week in August.
Okay. This is my question. What does 4-H stand for? What are the 4-H's? Is that something symbolic?
Yes, 4-H started back in about 1914. Probably started here in Bracken County in the in the 20s, the 1920s. 4-H stands for Head, Hands, Heart, and Health. The 4-H's, and the colors are green and white, and the motto is learning by doing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, would you mind introducing yourself and tell us what your role here is in Bracken County?
My name is Dwayne Padgett, Judge Executive of Bracken County. My main job is administrator of the county, make out the budget. We have 2 court meetings each month, and I try to do the best I can for the county. It's a rural county, like Tom says. We don't have any industries much in the county. I have a couple in Augusta, and I try to put in my time the best I can to help Bracken County move forward.
Alexandria, county seat of Campbell County. Campbell County population, 81,771. Area square miles, 152. Rank, 116. Campbell County is located in the 4th Congressional District.
We're standing across the street from the Campbell County Courthouse, which is located in Newport, Kentucky. A piece of interest is that Campbell County is one of the only 2 counties that has 2 courthouses. With me we have Andrew Jolly, former judge. Judge, what can you tell us? Can you tell us a little bit about why we have a courthouse here in Newport and why we have a courthouse located in Alexandria?
Well, of course, when Campbell County was established, they attempted to locate each courthouse in Kentucky within a one day's driving distance, where a person could go to the courthouse in his horse and wagon and return home in the evening. So invariably, the center of a county was chosen, and ultimately, after it being located in one or two other spots, by the way, it did locate in Alexandria, and the courthouse was built there as the county seat. Then in the Kenton and Campbell County, the population growth came and development came around the river as it is today, and all at once we had a concentration of people in the northern end of the county. And so some of our legislators saw that need, and they passed a law that wherever a second-class city exists in a county, that you must hold court in that city. So technically this is not the county seat, it's the courthouse that you're looking at. Alexandria is still the county seat, but because Newport is a second-class city, we're compelled to hold court in that city. The reason being, of course, it's near to the greatest number of people. And the same thing happens in Kenton County, and then down in Boyd County and Ashland, the same thing prevails there. Those are the three counties in Kentucky which are fortunate enough to have two great courthouses.
What can you tell us about Andy Jolly, the man?
Well, most of it I wouldn't like to tell you. But I was born and raised here, was my family. Our roots are in Campbell County, and we love it. Think it's the greatest place in the world to live. I went to law school at University of Cincinnati and came out of law school running. Was elected county judge, I think one of the, at that time at least, I was the youngest county judge ever elected in Kentucky, and I served 5 terms. And I enjoyed it all. That's been my political background.
That's quite a political background. Can you tell us why there's a park in southern Campbell County that bears your name?
Yes, when they opened that park, I was the first one to play it, and thereafter I had the course record until the next person played. So they named it after me because I had the first one to have a course record there. No, and I feel very honored that they did. We built the park during my administration as county judge, and it was one of the first county parks of that size developed in Kentucky, and we did it without increasing taxes, with the revenues that it generated, and people appreciated it. And when I left office, the succeeding fiscal court named it after me. I'm highly honored. I think you ought to wait till people are dead to do that, because I'm always, everybody thinks I'm dead when they talk about the park. That fellow's not living, is he? Well, he's living. I'm proudest of its people. I've traveled all over this country, and I've met a lot of people in my few short years. But I think that the people in this county are probably the most solid, most friendly, reasonable people that you're going to find any place in the country, and that includes the state of Kentucky. I'm getting really narrowing it down. Campbell County people are great. That's what I like about Campbell County.
With me today we have Mr. Ken Reese, who is a local resident as well as a teacher and takes interest in history. Ken, what can you tell us about the formation of the county?
Well, originally the county was part of several other counties. Grant and Pendleton, Boone, and Campbell were all part of the original county, and around 1840 the other counties had already been divided up, and Campbell County became a county by itself. Okay. At that time the courthouse here was built, and it's been maintained by the county ever since.
Okay. How did it get the name Campbell?
Colonel John Campbell was a personality, was living at the time, and he was a famous person, and they decided to honor him by naming the county after him.
Can you tell us a little bit about this courthouse, the age of it?
Well, it was built around 1840 by a man named Jolly. Mr. Jolly was a brick mason in this area, and he was also a Baptist minister. And he built a lot of buildings in the area, and I would imagine that this particular building was one of the few that's left. Most of them were built in the 1840s or before, and this is probably one of the few left, other than maybe Flag Spring Baptist Church up in the Flag Springs area of Campbell County.
What do you know about the reason for the existence of two courthouses in Campbell County?
Well, originally Alexandria was considered to be the geographic center of the county, but later on the problem existed that most of the population lived in and around Newport, so that the county built the courthouse down there too, and that at some point they decided they needed to have most of the courthouse duties down there, but Alexandria never did want to give it up, so they ended up maintaining two of them.
Can you tell us a little bit about general history about Campbell County?
Well, Campbell County originally was a hunting and camping ground for the Indians. In fact, there was a battleground located off of Newman Avenue in Fort Thomas. For the most part, it wasn't until the 1790s when the white settlers came into the area, and probably David Leitch would probably be the first permanent settlement. He built a settlement down off of Licking Pike and Wilder, and brought 40 men with him, and they had a settlement there for some time until eventually Newport was founded. Newport itself was famous because Colonel James Taylor, his son, was sent here. Mr. Taylor had 1,500 acres in and around. It was given to him as a land grant for having fought in the Revolutionary War. And when Mr. Taylor decided he wasn't going to move here, he sent his son here, and his son ended up moving to that area and building a large house. The house is still there today. It's called Belleville, but the name today is Von der Harstetter Funeral Home, and it's a very large mansion in the Mansion Hill area of Newport. It's probably the most prominent building left in Newport as far as the real old buildings. After Mr. Taylor died, he was buried in an area of Newport that was a cemetery, which eventually became the front yard of Newport Junior High School. And at some point they decided that that wasn't a proper place, and they started a new cemetery, which is Evergreen, which is in Southgate. And the important part about that was the fact that Evergreen, the area around Evergreen Cemetery, was also a fortification against Morgan's Raiders during the Civil War. So there's a series of cannons up there on the hillside in Evergreen Cemetery where Mr. Taylor is buried. Oh, he's not buried in the same section, but that is the area where the fortifications were built by the Army. Now, the Army was originally, the Union Army that is, was located in Newport, called the Newport Barracks. The Newport Barracks were in a floodplain area that was too low, and they had problems down there with floods over the years, so eventually they, a general from Washington came down, decided he wanted to find a new place, so he went down the Ohio River and found a high point, which ended up being Fort Thomas, and the fort was up there and served World War I and II and the Korean War, and about the time of the Vietnam War, it was eventually closed. There's still an Army Reserve area up there, but for the most part, the Army has moved or sold most of the area to the county, and the Veterans Hospital is still maintained by the government up there.
Can you tell us a little bit, you had mentioned earlier about a burial place in Campbell County.
Yes, there's one of the burial places in Campbell County is in Grand Slick. It's called Oakland Cemetery, and Daniel Boone's sister is buried up there. It's Mary Boone Bryan. She was originally from another area but moved here in her later life to live with her son, Samuel Bryan, and eventually he moved on after she died. She was buried along the Licking River, but the Daughters of the American Revolution felt that wasn't the proper burial place, so in the 1930s they had her remains moved to the cemetery in Grand Slick. So Mary Boone's probably our most famous resident, and after he moved away, her son, he went down toward Lexington, and Bryan Station was one of his early homes after he moved away.
Okay. Speaking of early residents in this area, you were mentioned earlier of Indians.
Yes, the Indians were all over the county, but mostly it was a place for a hunting ground and for a place to camp. There was several battlegrounds. Along the Ohio River side especially is several burial grounds near the California-Kentucky area, and a lot of excavation has taken place there. And it's interesting that a lot of the bones and artifacts are no longer in Campbell County. They were taken to other places. I believe the Behringer Crawford Museum in Covington has some of the artifacts, but for the most part, the artifacts aren't in Campbell County anymore. The early diggings simply weren't, nobody was interested at that time, and they weren't kept here. In the same area where this it was Silver Grove train yards. Other than the rivers, the train yards would probably be the most important area as far as transportation for Campbell County. A lot was done around the railroad. It became a railroad town. The entire Silver Grove area was situated around the railroad and all its people, but it has since closed, and the railroad still maintains some yards there, but for the most part, the railroad is gone. One of the very earliest industries was the making of salt. Grand Slick is very well known for its salt wells. Now, it's not like a salt mine. Most people think of salt as coming out of a mine, but in Grand Slick, a man by the name of John Grant found salt water. He would take it out of the ground by use of a pump, boil it down, and then it was sold by the bushel, and it was more expensive than gold was because it was used for preserving food, for their animal and livestock, and for themselves. So it became a very early industry, and it went on for 50 to 75 years until cheaper sources of salt were found. So it was probably one of the very